Oh, hello there. Yes, well, I was very pleased yesterday. That all passed off peacefully. Just shows that our side's very peaceful. It's made up of the majority of peaceful people, our side. Not like their side, which is made up of a majority of people that aren't very peaceful. They're all violent, aren't they? And there aren't very many of them, whereas there's loads of us. Yes, anyway, it's got that particular one out the way. Oh, God, yeah. Still smiling about yesterday, about the fact that Loza Fox decided not to turn up. Variety of people have suggested why. I think I do know why, because he did actually have to say in his statement that he didn't recognise any of the people speaking, but one of the people speaking was Andrew Bridgen, and you may recall that our Loza actually had a few issues with him over a Christmas tree in the company car. Yes, he really is that petty, and I have the feeling that maybe he just didn't want to show up, or maybe that was the reason. He just didn't want to bump into him. Yes, which just goes to show all of our political leaders really collectively across the board are only barely adults. Only barely adults, aren't they? Yes, I'll come back to theories of adulthood, but I was also sort of struck by, the people that we are supposed to look up to. And when they pretend to care about us, it does get a bit comical. Like yesterday, Elon Musk, for example, a man who's enormously brilliant, isn't he? And everything he says is absolutely brilliant. He's not a petty-minded individual like, I don't know, Lawrence Fox, of course. But he was asking for us for our opinions yesterday, but he's done that many times in the past and just completely ignored them. And of course, one of the major opinions that lots of people have is that billionaires should be taxed more. But that isn't going to happen with Elon, because Elon is very desperate for Trump to win, because it means that, number one, he can get his hands on a lot more military rockets procurement and contracts, but also all those tariffs on China mean that he will be able to sell a lot more electric cars. Still, in our own best interest, after all. I do get lots of people in my comments that will tell me that the rich are just after our own best interests, but me, having a vague view of history, of course, does vaguely understand that lots and lots of people in the past who were very big and very bright and very, very, very sensible business people were very, very keen on patriotic ideas, especially in the 1920s and 1930s, for example. Just going to put that one out there. Meanwhile, of course, in the actual real world, away from what the British media is interested in, because it's all about how poor landlords are, or indeed what the exact working definition of somebody who doesn't work is, or indeed migrants, we actually come into a real world thing, which kind of Elon does actually touch on, if you like. And I was astounded this week by the lack of coverage of the latest BRIC conference with China and India and various other places like Russia, because there were loads and loads and loads of things that were very, very important that were decided there. Primarily the one is India and China deciding to sort of patch things up in a kind of non-aggression treaty. Might well have huge ramifications around the world in a way that perhaps Israel saber-rattling with its neighbours many ways won't. But of course it just isn't reported because they're way, way, way too busy reporting on other things about Strictly or baking or, Tommy Robinson. It would be nice if there were actual adults out there, that one had a feeling that these people were something other than simply self-interested gits. Yeah, if I can put it as bluntly as that. Yes, I know I'm going to slag off Keir Starmer because he's one of them as well. The people at the top of the Labour Party are identical to them. But if you think about actually being an adult, what does it mean? Well, I'm keen on Keegan's constructive development theory, a little diagram here about it. And rather than sort of like thinking about other ways about thinking about when people become adults, and becoming an adult is a kind of ongoing process. And I do like this because he divides the world of adulthood into 5 groups. The first one is the impulsive mind, which is a child. Now, I'll leave you to think about what certain politicians, for example, are incredibly impulsive, some of whom might indeed become, the president of the USA very, very soon. Yes? Then there's the imperial mind, okay? Let's have a look at this. Self is defined by the needs and interests relationships are transactional. Yes. It's basically people that really want that level of authority. Those ones that will argue the toss with me about how great Elon Musk is in my comments. No real facts or opinions about things, it's simply the way the world is. They're also always very, very keen to tell me how dreadful communism is without being able to explain why, because everyone knows that it is, and there's no need to explain why, because they can't be bothered to think about it. Yeah, even though they're adults, yes. Then there's the majority of the socialised mind, which is all about, where you stand in the world and your culture. And you can see the vast majority of people are still there. Now, the self-authoring mind is a really, really interesting one, okay, in his theory, in this idea that people need to have this kind of inner reflection and deal with all of those kind of weird paradoxes that there are in life, of which there are many, in the sense that maybe it isn't simply about certain groups of people being good and other groups of people being bad. Maybe there are other ways of approaching these things. Maybe the world is, complex and, for a small number of people, paradoxical. They can actually deal with that paradox without insisting, for example, that they're simply not going to go, like Lawrence Fox, because somebody he doesn't want to talk to is there, or they're simply not going to agree with something, like, Elon or Donald Trump, or they simply do know exactly the way that things are going to work, even though they haven't worked, like Keir Starmer. It would be nice if we got these people at the top who could understand that things are complex and allow them to be complex. Think about a world that was run on far more sort of anarchistic lines, whereby we just allowed things to be, anarchistic, if you like, that things would just flowed from people. Allow people to make up their own minds, as Elon rightly says. Except, of course, that would be really, really dangerous, because then suddenly all of those creative things that people have inside them would be unleashed, wouldn't they? And that would play merry hell with that small number of people at the top and their petty views of the world. And they might well find themselves usurped by people that actually are a lot more capable than them. And of course, we couldn't possibly have that, could we? Yeah? Imagine all those poor landlords having to go out and do something else. Imagine all those city financiers who might actually have to get a more decent job. And just imagine all those people who actually are at the bottom and are constantly being told that they need to accept less, and they really, really, really do need to vote for certain people, otherwise the brown ones will come and take what little they have. Imagine if all of that potential creativity that we have as human beings was unleashed. It would be something else, wouldn't it? But I must be a fool for thinking like that. Yes. Anyway, let me know what you think in your comments. Just a small tip for any of you that decide to sort of like put comments that are just bland nonsense. I will point out that it's bland nonsense. Okay? Come up with a constructive view of what I've said. Tell me why I'm wrong. Not that I'm wrong. Just tell me why I'm wrong. I don't think I am. Of course I don't. Of course I don't, because I'm on the wrong side. Yes. Anyway, do have a lovely, 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 lovely Sunday. We'll see how the week goes.